on regional integration in West Africa. And they brought together senior officials of ECOWAS, lecturers, civil society organization before we introduced the debate, and information on the achievements, challenges, and the future prospects of regional integration. And among the speakers at this opening ceremony was Dr. Godwin Morenga, the Executive Director of CODESRIA, Professor Fumi Olonishakin, Vice President of International Engagement of King's College London, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, co-founder of Amandla Institute, and Dr. Fatal, who is the Commissioner for Peace and Security. In the various interventions, I've highlighted the historical move of ECOWAS, the recurring problems inherited from colonization, and the urgent need to reinvent ourselves so that the community will be more pertinent, inclusive, and be focused on the people in the coming years. To come back into the highlights of the various interventions, Professor Olonishakin presented the 50th anniversary of ECOWAS as a unique opportunity to reimagine solidarity in the region. We should have standards of peace and integration, thanks to the collaboration of diplomats and civil society actors. She underscored the fact that West Africa is going through a lot of transition in terms of demography and technology, for which we need more commitment in order to rebuild the ECOWAS of peoples and ECOWAS for the future generations. In the 50th anniversary is an important stage. We need to look back before we are able to look ahead, affirming the collective need of all actors to maintain the promise of integration and community architecture. Dr. Morenga, the director of CODESRIA, talked about the continuous impact of colonialism on integration in Africa and West Africa in particular, and underscoring the fact that colonialism could be brief, but its impact is still very deep. He said regional integration by the countries is still lagging behind with regards to initiatives that are citizen-driven, whereby we have more problems in terms of mobility across the borders and interconnections amongst our countries. And finally, he underscored the role of CODESRIA, whereby this strengthens the work of ECOWAS, and says we should have more deep work, and of course the work works on migration and all other factors. After that, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, the founder of Amandla Institute, talked about the challenges of the organization. He noted that ECOWAS was a pioneer in having sub-regional norms in peace building and governance, but today it is facing a stagnation of internal development. Dr. Fayemi touched on security challenges of the region and said we should have a more sophisticated approach to fight against poverty, inequalities, and the weaknesses of governance that are the structural problems leading to insecurity. Finally, it called for a constructive engagement, working with AS countries that have exited ECOWAS, calling for inclusive dialogue to bring them back instead of alienating them further. His Excellency Abdullahi Fattah, in his speech, talked about the historical and strategic work of ECOWAS in three phases. You have the period of the Cold War, and then the neoliberal stage, characterized by institutionalization of democratic norms, and the final one where you have realignment in terms of security and governance. He underscored the fact that the society is facing two crises, that of security and democracy. which needs a critical and adaptive inclination. The ambassador said there's this time of introspection should be carried out by the people, and this has to go through large-scale consultation so as to define the vision for the people. At the end of his speech, mentioning Frantz Fanon, is so he talked about the partnership of ECOWAS with the civil society to work with peoples of West Africa. In concluding the opening speech, he talked about the central role of ECOWAS in peace promotion, integration, and collective progress in West Africa, while acknowledging the need to transform these structures and these approaches. This moment was followed by African public square debates on the need for regional organization to exist in integration. This discussion gave an intergenerational and dynamic discussion to brainstorm on the future of which was moderated by journalists, and this brought journalists, including Professor Abdoulaye Bathily, who is the Senegalese president envoy to the Sahel. So there was one also on security, Dr. Babatunde Afolabi, Regional Director for Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, Dr. Faisal Mohamed Garba, Associate Professor of African Institute, Dr. Benta Jallo as well. They examined the following notions. These regional institutions necessary for regional integration. The interventions focus collectively on the tensions between interventions by the countries and the one carried out by the people themselves, institutional challenges and the practice of regionalism and the imperatives of reforms. The highlights is that define the need for regional organization. Professor Abdoulaye Bathily talked about its historical continuum. And of course, you have the pre-colonial trade. He affirmed that regional institutions are indispensable for progress collectively, in addition to take up the challenges that are structural, that is political instability, economic disparities, and dependence on the exterior. He called for strengthening regional African institutions in order to amplify the voice of the African continent in the international governance space and called for cooperation and more reforms. Dr. Ajayi, after him, talk of the effectiveness of the institution that does not reflect the realities that we're going to and the expectation of the people. He said, if ECOWAS and other similar institutions are existing, problems in their implementation and the bureaucracy is not allowing them to be credible. He talked about harassment at the borders when people hold ECOWAS passports, and he talked about contradictions in terms of free movement policies. He said integration is people driven and not for policymakers. Dr. Ajayi said integration should be based on public confidence and ownership by the people instead of focusing on protocols and treaties that leaders are violating frequently. Dr. Afolabi Babatunde reaffirmed the central role of countries and regional institutions are an extension of state power. Talked about the protocol on free movement, peacekeeping operations, and infrastructure projects. He said such problems will not be possible without an institutional framework, affirming that in spite of these problems, ECOWAS is still an important institution for cooperation and shared prosperity. Dr. Faisal Garba Mohammed has shared a more sociological approach describing West Africa as an historic area that is fluid and characterized by mobility and economic flows. He talked about the essential role of women and youth through the cross-border trade, especially the use of social media. He urged political leaders to have an integrated system, acknowledging the role of ordinary Africans that have been doing in regionalism without even the intervention of formal institutions. Ambassador Lassimwan talked about more historical framework, talking about the debates that we needed to have with the creation of the OAU. He said the architect of that unity, they wanted sub-regional groupings so as to facilitate economic and social development. He said the institutional regional frameworks are essential because this helps to mobilize resources and establish community rules. Talking about the transitory level of integration, he said only you must do all these together so that the continent can go towards prosperity. Finally, the last intervention, Dr. Penda Jallo said there's a crucial issue. We're talking about the exclusion of population, the lack of connection, and the paradox of resources in Africa. She deplored the fact that 220 million people are in the villages. They are cut off from regional discussion. And all of these are obstacles to regional development. She called for a reorientation of integration policies towards more inclusion by putting more emphasis on rural communities and equitable distribution of resources. After this discussion, all this was done with essential contribution by participants and by some of the points that have been raised. During this discussion, participants reaffirmed, most of them, the central role of regional institutions such as ECOWAS in safeguarding peace and promoting solidarity, with examples of the Gambia, Togo, Sierra Leone, where participants underscore the role of ECOWAS in conflict resolution, especially in preventing conflicts in the political crisis in Gambia. Professor Ibrahim Khan of talked about the concept of regional citizenship in order to create possibilities in order to take on board the contribution of the people. The various contributors underscored the fact that regional institutions are indispensable, but these institutions must be rock solid. But even though reforms are necessary to safeguard interests of the political elites, finally, General Faye and General Mbai said there's a need to invest in infrastructure, especially roads and transport, and to define the models for governance and regional institutions. At the end of the meeting, talking about the there are more voices in support of these institutions. So they have to be reformed so that they can be efficient. To conclude, these debates reaffirmed an instrument for integration and underscored the need to reinvent them. And the focus should be the bottom up instead of top to the bottom. The people said the institutions should evolve to be more inclusive, transparent, and more reactive by aligning their roles on the aspirations of the young people and that of the civil society. Discussions show the consensus on the key points. Integration should be focused on people, founded on common values and daily interactions. Institutional reform to fight against bureaucracy, political meddling, infrastructure and connectivity are conditions to have functional integration. Education, innovation, and inclusion of the rural people and young people should be priority. Finally, regional solidarity is essential in order to take up the challenges of insecurity, governance, and economic transformation. At the end of this, we had the first panel, which is West Africa in the next 50 years, a conjunction of the various trends. And this was supposed to look at the future trajectory of West Africa in the coming years by putting emphasis on gender, young people rights, citizenship, and citizenship in the region. This was done by Mrs. Adeyemi. The social evolution, the various engines of transformation and the reforms that are necessary for development. In the opening speech, Mrs. Faremi talked about the discussion that took place earlier on and talked on the need to have regional integration should be on solid ground. She said ECOWAS should be a community of people, an organization that defends social contract. The moderator and urged the participants to brainstorm on the fact that ECOWAS, the way it is structured, is it suitable for its objective in order to meet the changing aspirations of the citizens, especially people. Journalist, Professor Pendaba of University of Dakar talked about the central theme or role of history in terms of integration in West Africa, discussing the fact that we cannot do the reimagination without taking a look at historical past and the role that women played in the African societies. She said women have always been at the heart of social organization, the economic and spiritual organization of Africa, and they should be fully integrated in the process of reconstruction of regional integration. She underscored the fact that the communities cannot be rebuilt without the active participation of women in governance, economic transformation, and peace building. After her, Madam Sosa talked about the impact of young people. If young people is the biggest asset of Africa, they are underutilized. She talked about the concept of youth because it has cultural, political, and developmental elements. Young people are segment, but urge political leaders to focus on job creation, inclusion, leadership, and sharing of knowledge instead of just focusing on other factors. According to him, this in the next 50 years that will be shared amongst all, urging ECOWAS to make sure that young people should be given possibilities of being just passive beneficiaries. The third panel, Egbewekon, talked about the economic context, a dimensional actor. She said this evolution means that the realities, especially geopolitical differences, especially with the advent of the AS countries, asking ECOWAS to retool in terms of its diplomatic tools. She also raised the crucial issue of reparatory justice because of what has been done at the African Union in terms of restitution and reparation of injustices suffered by Africa. She urged ECOWAS to have a proactive stance and to work in terms of governance, debt, and in order to ensure the economic sovereignty of the region. Of course, these interventions were followed by plenary discussions with intervention from the audience and participants that brought about contributions that showed the diversity of the concerns. Amongst them is the need to have democratic responsibility, education, sharing of knowledge. Many speakers said we have to reorganize the educational system so as to put more knowledge of ECOWAS in civic education. And all the inhabitants of the region are not having equal access to opportunities. The future ECOWAS in the future should give more pride of place to women, disabled people, and other participants said that digital transformation, AI, and climate change are going to be the key assets that will help us to be able to adapt to the situation in the future. In conclusion, the session reaffirmed the fact that the future of West Africa will depend on inclusive leadership, equal opportunities for men and women, supported by solid and reactive institutions. The speakers said that if ECOWAS has made notable progress in terms of integration, it must redefine its objectives and priorities in order to remain pertinent in a changing sociological climes. Finally, the last roundtable in the afternoon, of which the theme is to reimagine West African integration, the future of regional economic integration for sustainable development, done by Professor Ikpe, examine the future of sustainable development in West Africa by focusing on the trends coming from the first session. The discussion focused on reinvention of principles, logic of priority that should guide the next stage of development, meaning that competitive economic development and socially inclusive, and that are based in the aspirations of the citizens. In his intervention, Dr. Faisal Gaba Mohammed talked about the integration from the social angle, power and the distribution, saying that the future of West Africa will depend on the way the region will take up the major challenge of food, access to water, tangible progress in their daily lives. She underscored the paradox of riches in Africa. In spite of abundant resources, citizens are still having most of their needs not met. She talked about the relevance of ECOWAS that will depend on its possibility of having concrete results in order to meet the basic challenges in terms of development. She talked about empowerment of women as part of the reforms of ECOWAS. You talked about the exclusion of women in terms of arable land, decision-making spheres, and the issue that you have to work with the diaspora also in this process. The third panelist for this session, Dr. Fatima Akilu, talked about the ECOWAS trajectory for the past 50 years, that we have stagnation and innovation intertwined. She said, if citizens are interested in culture, technology, and creativity, regional institutions are too bureaucratic and technocratic. She said Africa is a young continent governed by old people. The energy of young people should be used so that integration should work. According to her, the real integration will be done by ourselves within the communities through the social integration, or not through treaties or protocols. This discussion was open to contributions from the audience, and in their interventions they recalled and strengthening the fact that we need to have institutional reorganization and to make sure our priorities are right. The speakers said ECOWAS should function strictly on the basis of its founding principles, and reaffirming a supranational framework and strengthening the ECOWAS Parliament, and create an economic and social council so as to work with CSOs in the integration process. Recommended a regular evaluation of policies in order to improve, look at responsibilities and search for solutions. There's a need to focus on what is achievable, the industrialization and other factors. So peace and development are important for sustainable economic development. The major conclusions of this session is that West African integration should be based on the principle of inclusion, redistribution, and people-based development. Many panelists said structural reforms are necessary in order to guarantee the pertinent development of ECOWAS. This session ended by the fact that if you do development without the people, this will be an illusion, meaning that ECOWAS must gain the confidence of the people and be able to work on justice, equity, and solidarity that have always defined West African populations. And a call for action was very clear: move from ECOWAS of people of states to ECOWAS of peoples on shared prosperity, regional cooperation that shows more resilience. What we can retain from this first day of discussion is that a regional institution such as ECOWAS is more than, it's still very pertinent. So in terms, it has to rework its relationship with the people so that it should be able to work for the common good of the people in an inclusive and transparent manner. The 50 years of ECOWAS is a selection. The discussion of the first day underscored the fact that the sustainability of the West African project would depend on a renewed leadership, inclusive leadership, and intergenerational dialogue. Meanwhile, the region is at a crossroad. The message of speakers was very clear. The future of West Africa will depend on the choices that we make today, and those choices should focus on cooperation, democracy, and sustainability. Thank you very much.
Please, can we give her another round of applause? That was a comprehensive rendition of what we did yesterday. Today, we are going to the third section, which is titled ECOWAS Vision 2050, AI and Digital Transformation. In this session, we hope to explore ECOWAS Vision 2050 through the lens of new technologies, artificial intelligence, and digital transformation. We all know that the digital era presents new frontiers for leadership, participation, and connectivity. Our panelists will guide us through how emerging technologies can re-engineer integration, empower young Africans, and strengthen cross-border solidarity in a rapidly changing world. It's my pleasure to invite the moderator of the session, Mbantu Sam, for the Institute for Economic Development and Planning. Can we put our hands together for her as she comes up? We are going to have 4 panelists. The first panelist is Dr. Damilola Adegoke, the head of Data Lab, African Leadership Center, King's College London. Can you put your hands together for him? The second panelist is Dr. Carlos Cardoso, the founding director, Amilcar Cabral Center for Social Studies. Let's put our hands together for him. The third panelist is Mr. Brigado Bingon Hajio. Please, let's put our hands together for him as he moves to the table. And the final panelist is Senior Tech Advisor for Nigerian Ministry of Finance, Mr. Ayodeji Yusuf Odushote. Thank you very much. I now hand over to Madam Sam.
Thank you very much, MC Professor. Thank you, Mariam, for the good recap of yesterday's session. Is everyone here? Can you respond? And a very good day today. And I think that yesterday and this morning, Mariam has helped us to go through what we discussed yesterday. And I think we agreed that we have ECOWAS, we have the house with a strong roof, don't we? So now, remaining is to see how house is functioning and what could be done better for people living in the house to feel home and feel safe. Thank you. I will switch in French and invite our panelists to go through what they, the questions I will ask them, and discussions that they will set the scene for the discussions too. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, everyone. Before I proceed with the next session, I would like to say that ECOWAS is not alone in this world. It's a world that is being affected by some factors, and no region or part of the world is left out. Now, what is ECOWAS doing in this world affected by many 50 vision of ECOWAS in the face of technologies, AI, digital transformation, communication, and social media? Now these that are affecting all factors. It might also submerge assets and also affect some factors, and in summary, it might reverse. The ECOWAS is at a critical juncture in its development, marked by this unique context. Context is not only unique given today's topic, but it is also dynamic and an involvement of some climate risks, as some speakers stated yesterday. These issues will be discussed today, and to give the floor to panelists, some questions will guide our discussions. To begin with, we will need to be organized. I will give you the floor for 6 minutes each, for you to answer questions on the behavior of future leaders and future generation in the area of AI, new technologies, social media, and cross transnational commitment. And what lessons have you taken? And what lessons should ECOWAS learn from this? I will first give the floor to Dr. Damilola.
Yes. You have the floor. I was saying that we'll start by giving you the floor, and we will explore. First, I will give you 6 minutes. We'll explore the questions on the first question, the first guiding question. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to, since I'm allowed to lay the template for today's panel, so I will be a little bit formalized, and then when we get to the interaction section, I'll be more free to be able to express myself the way I would like to. So the question is, what observations are apparent in the attitude and approaches of future leaders and next generation Africans to the use of AI, new digital technologies, and social media for regional and transnational engagement? What lesson do these offer a future ECOWAS of people? Now my response. Next generation West Africans exhibit a dynamic context-driven engagement with digital technologies. Far from being passive consumers, they are active co-creators who deploy mobile phones, social media, intelligent tools as instruments of agency, economic opportunity, and civic expression. For many young West Africans, digital access is...
Sorry, the speaker is so fast. The interpreters need him to slow down. Thank you.
Health, and political participation. Social media has emerged as a transnational public sphere where movements like the Fix the Country in Ghana, Josu Fatu.
Sorry, the interpreters can't work at this speed. The speaker is so fast, so the interpreters can't work with this speed.
Il dit que c'est trop.
Is it the pace? The pace?
Yes, the pace, please.
All right. Sorry. Yeah. So, okay, I'll very slow now. Next generation West Africans, as I was saying, they exhibit a dynamic, context-driven engagement with digital technologies that, unlike what most people assume, that they are not merely passive consumers, they are active co-creators and what we can call pro-zoomers. That is, they both produce and consume at the same time. So they are active in that regard. And they deploy these digital technologies, whether it's AI, social media, mobile phones, or any form of intelligence systems that they use as instruments of agency, economic opportunity, and civic expression. And for these young West Africans, digital access is for them is a way of life, is a culture. It's not optional, and it's foundational to their own cultural experience. As creators, they are very creative, and they've contributed immensely to the creative economy. But most times, people frame them, and most scholars frame them in the kind of conflictual nature, and in their own political. When you talk about youth and social media or digital technologies, conversations tend to move towards political activism and participation. Social media has emerged as a transnational public sphere where movements like the Free the Country in Ghana, the hashtag Josu Fatu in Senegal, and the NSAS movement catalyze cross-border conversations around justice, governance, and identity. This digital activism fosters a nascent or emergent regional consciousness that challenges inherited colonial boundaries and imagines a shared West African future. These generational shifts also reflect what scholars describe as post-situationalism. Scholars like Guy Debord, a move beyond fixed place-bound identities toward fluid, networked forms of belonging shaped by shared values and digital interactions rather than geography alone. though I have a specific reservation around that because it also creates a form of, because it's framed the public, social media framed the public as social spectacles. And in that regard, so it gives the feeling that you are actually doing something, participation and a sense of representation that are manufactured in this sense are not real. And then a sort of illusory agency where people feel that when they reshare or they retweet certain hashtags, they feel that they are participating and they are engaging and they are doing something meaningful. So, and these fast food technologies or approaches to intervention make people think they have done a lot when they have not actually done much in that regard. So social media enables West African youth to inhabit multiple overlapping communities simultaneously, and the students in Lagos will mobilize with activists in Ouagadougou over police brutality. We've seen that, I think, this week when young Kenyans went to Tanzanian border to say they want to join the Tanzanian people in protest. So, yeah, so, and also over, not only over police brutality, but collaborate with developers in Dakar on an open source app. This post-situational consciousness dissolves rigid national, a relational issue-based solidarity that is both deeply personal and transnational. For ECOWAS, this signals a profound opportunity. The community of peoples is no longer urgent reality, being lived daily in digital spaces. The challenges, therefore, lies not in creating regional unity from scratch, but in recognizing, legitimizing, and structurally supporting the connective practices already underway. So yet, this organic solidarity operates within a fragile ecosystem, global platform, designed for profit, not public good, often amplifying misinformation and extract data without accountability. Following disinformation campaigns, just like Russian-linked operations in Niger and Mali, exploit legitimate grievances to destabilize democracies, while domestic authorities increasingly resort to internet shutdowns and digital surveillance to suppress dissent. Key lessons, finally now, for ECOWAS. The region's digital future cannot be outsourced. A community of peoples requires digital sovereignty, not only infrastructure, data and platforms that are collectively owned, locally governed. And in this, I would like to also highlight that 95% of all our data in Africa, not only in West Africa, are domiciled outside of the continent. This must be rectified. And also, this not only locally governed, it must be inclusive and aligned with West African values. Finally, ECOWAS must institutionalize and scale grassroots digital engagement through regional digital public goods and inclusive policy frameworks that protect civic space and promote innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. You gave your perspective, and thank you for that. We can keep there that there's an emerging reality offered by technologies, intelligence, artificial intelligence, and it brings solidarity among people in ECOWAS and can be, but for ECOWAS, there's an issue, there's a risk of sovereignty that should better be looked at. Thank you very much. Carlos Cardozo is our next speaker. And Carlos, you're going to go through that, your perspective from this question. And you have 6 minutes.
Obrigado, colega moderadora. Eu gostaria de começar esta breve intervenção onde nós terminamos ontem e acabamos de ver e ouvir, nomeadamente, o resumo daquilo que nós estivemos a debater ontem. E a constatação que nós...
We had The summary of our discussions yesterday, what we have seen, this would continue. We will continue to work in order to strengthen countries from West Africa. According to the 2025 document of ECOWAS, our observation is quite crystal clear. Integration is still the pillar, I can say one of the essential pillars of economic, social and cultural development of peoples of West Africa. It is true that after 50 years, we must keep in mind the experiences and the knowledge that we have gathered over the years, and that ECOWAS we believe that all of this can be enough for ECOWAS must be able to survive this integration move. This should not just be a goal, but must be a way of meeting the needs of the people, which is prosperity, happiness, and the well-being of the peoples of the community. In order to achieve this integration and survive, ECOWAS must be an organization that is able to reimagine itself and finds ways of existing so that we have not even seen today. This integration should be we should be able to concretize some instruments and frameworks. We look at the issue of AI, technology, and other tools that are at the disposal of ECOWAS for the future. I think the presence of ECOWAS will be achieved through these instruments. But these instruments should not be something that it should not be something that is beyond the reach of the people. The 2050 document, looking at the 2050 vision document of ECOWAS, we can review some aspects of development, and we must make sure that we use the new information technology, because we know demography, human capital, and the second theme relating to environment and natural resources. There's also the third theme which relates to governance, security, and peace. By thinking about all these themes, we should invariably use these instruments. It is obvious that using these instruments would be at different levels. Each country will have its own rhythm. For instance, if you take countries that I know very much, like Guinea-Bissau or Cape Verde, in Cape Verde, we invested a lot on the development of ICT, and the purpose being to strengthen quality service, ensure quality of service, and make sure that that is done through digitalization. And that helps people to have access to information and to remove the bureaucratic barriers to information. In Guinea-Bissau, we can observe that recently we did analysis of digital economy, and this work helped us to see the challenges and opportunities in areas of digital economy of the country. The way each country will participate in this effort will differ. Coming back to our theme in West Africa, I would say that the new generation they are in favor of the various approaches. Well, the attitudes are different with regards to the use of digital technologies compared to the old generation. And this also applies to the culture of governance that is older, but they are still there. The new generation of West Africans are showing a lot of optimism in terms of technology and innovation. These young people consider AI as a tool that will empower the young people. The young people use this technology to overcome the structural barriers. We are talking about entrepreneurship, education, and civic participation. I could also have mentioned other examples from my country. There is a plethora of examples using to be able to empower people. There are startups that were set up in Lagos, Accra, Dakar, and Abidjan, and these platforms give solutions that are AI-based and adapted to the local context. You have the example of these attitudes. My colleague talked about the active attitude or even proactive attitude in using the information. Today, we are seeing digital conscience that is evolving among the young people on the social media. Social media has become a platform for regional solidarity. Young leaders are using this platform for mass mobilization, organized debates, and change the narrative on governance, especially when it comes to climate change and inclusion. We can talk about transnational digital identity. There are people are seeing themselves as they see themselves as West Africans before they see themselves as nationals of a particular country. So in that way, I can say that we are in a framework whereby the borders are evaporating, disappearing, thanks to digital community. You have online learning, distance, remote work, and the other means of work these days. We can also see that people have understood the risks related to the digital world. And we can use this new means of communication. This is not something that is supernatural. This is not something that is beyond human capacity. In this wise, we can say that there is people are becoming more aware about AI. I have attended many forums whereby we saw that people have understood what AI can do in Europe and the United States. All these areas are being more critical towards AI. In Sweden, there are people who are coming to books and manuals so as to avoid a problem whereby AI will contaminate, I should say, the way young people and children are using these contemporary tools. I think all these could serve as an example for our youth for us to determine how we should not be using AI, which of course it's a trendy issue these days. We should not look at it as something that is supernatural. We should have a critical analysis of these tools. We must think of how we can do this for an organization such as ECOWAS.
Merci beaucoup, Carlos.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I think just like the previous speaker, you made mention of the potentials and the risks and challenges ECOWAS faces. This includes opportunities offered and the specific behaviors of young people and future leaders of ECOWAS. This includes opportunities in the area of citizenship, strengthening citizenship and its use in education and work, and the ease offered by these tools. I will now give the floor to Mr. Ayajiru. He has worked in the area of digital transformation, and he also has a journalism background. Thank you so much. Mr. Aju, you have the floor to express your views on the first question, which has to do with the systematic behavior of future leaders and also the use of these tools that ECOWAS can use. Thank you so much, moderator. This morning, while listening to the news, I came across an article from Beninese in Cote d'Ivoire. In the country, he set up the first African smartphone that can be used to speak more than 50 African languages using AI. And I have been wondering that we still have hope in the sub-region in the digital area. So a lot has been done. Maybe we should look into the context where we are evolving today. West Africa is still striving, as we saw yesterday with discussions with its physical and political barriers that are an impediment to cooperation and mobility, whereas we can see that borders across the ground are drifting to digital area, and there are a lot of progress in this area. In Benin, for example, we can see that administrations are going digital and some institutions are going virtual as well. And today we have more than 1,000 services that have gone digital across the country. We have about 210 that can issue documents online. And what we can observe globally is an example, but in our sub-region, we have some national examples that have their limits because of some restricted markets and disparities in terms of regulations and tax issues. And we have been wondering what will become of the ECOWAS project to unify politics in the area of ITCs in order to bridge digital gap and promote the development of our sub-region. Going further, we will see that some projects have been on place in line with the ECOWAS project, which was an e-government platform to interconnect the governance and also governments in the region. As ECOWAS finalized this project, we also had the fact of considering the creation of a regional digital space for ECOWAS. So we can see that over time, ECOWAS has put interest in this issue and continues to be interested in these issues. 10 years ago, when we were celebrating the 40 years of our organization, I came across a document where we were already assessing projects in terms of regional integration in West Africa. Looking at this document, we realized that connection across the region to ITC through submarine cables, we started from that point, and we also had so many progress made by countries. And maybe we are not where we are aiming at today. Overall, today we can see that ECOWAS is still trying to thrive in the area of digital economy, especially with ITCs that is in play, and this is where the idea and question of leadership comes up. And in the next 50 years, maybe we will need to have a transformation, inclusive and sovereign leadership transformation. Why? Because we need leaders that can not only adapt member states to new technologies, but to reinvent our way of governing. We talked about education. We need to reimagine our educational style to produce and also cooperate in the digital sphere, inclusive as well, because the digital area can only be meaningful if it affects or covers everyone. We talked about youth, women, and people with disabilities. We also talked about people living in rural areas. We need to ensure that this leadership considers technology as a tool for inclusion and citizen participation, and not only as an instrument of administrative modernization, as we can see in some member states in the sub-region. We also have sovereign leadership. The previous speaker earlier talked about the issue of digital sovereignty. How do we control our data, infrastructure, content, and also some narratives? Today, we need to build an ECOWAS for cyber sovereignty that can protect its citizens, defend its digital interests globally. Finally, the moderator asked me a question where she emphasized my background as a journalist, and I would like to say that for some time now, I have been working with WATHI, that is the think tank for West Africa. For WATHI, we launched a new concept this year, and we describe it as a dialogue concept. This year, our objective was to help the team members to discuss a trendy issue in WATHI with participants. This was to create a connection with the community and those who are familiar with our events. And the first theme of this discussion was titled this year, last January, it was titled, "What's the future for ECOWAS after the withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger?" We can see that one of the flagship recommendations was we need to strengthen the visibility of ECOWAS actions. The absence of a clear communication on these initiatives has weakened our organization in the face of some slogans and hearsay. So a proactive communication strategy which is inclusive and pedagogical will better inform our citizens and to counter some perceptions that are a little bit biased nowadays. So can we concretize this idea without the media, journalists, and whistleblowers that can promote the image of the institution to people in remote areas? I'm talking about community radios. We saw that the Directorate for Communication in the ECOWAS Commission launched the first edition of the Excellence Prize for Journalists this year. That's a good initiative, but I think we need to go beyond that. We're talking about the free movement of people and goods. What about free expression in our region, particularly in the media? The last classification of Reporters Sans Frontières in 2025 reveals that in the West African region, there is a significant drop in the context of rise of authoritarian regimes. Overall, that's my contribution. Thank you. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ajo. We can see that you talked about leadership issues, and we will come back on that later on, but we can note that ECOWAS had already been involved in technology with some projects, but there is need for us to be adapted to the context and to have a much more advanced vision from that, given the rapid trend and progress in technology. The degree of penetration, like Dr. Damilola clearly said, is not the same among the people, but we need to work on access, and it will be beneficial to all, not only to better communicate, but also to communicate in a way that we can help ECOWAS and the people at large to achieve the targeted development objectives based on these new tools. At this point, I will give the floor to Mr. Odutsote. He will bring a government point of view on the table in the area of the behavior of future leaders and the lessons ECOWAS can draw from this. Thank you. You have the floor, sir.
And good morning. My name is Ayade Jodushote. We have a very interesting topic before us, and that is reimagining West African integration in the digital age. I have a couple of notes in front of me, but also as I listen to my co-panelists, a couple of thoughts are, rushing through my mind. One of them is to really ask the position that we have as West African in the digital space in itself. And when I say that, what I have observed by myself is that we have a lot of consumerism, tokenism, rather than real productivity. When you look at, when you look at the top 10 unicorns, tech unicorns in Africa, Nigeria has 5 of that. And 5 of those are actually based in Lagos. But when you check the portfolio of all of the unicorns, it's all consumerism. And for me, it begins to beg the question as to the digital future of West Africa and Africa at large. So yes, we make money. Economics is at the base of everything. When you go through the Maslow hierarchy of needs, you would see why money, wealth, and all of these are important. But beyond wealth, beyond the money that we make, we also have a responsibility to build societies. We have responsibility to create one that can ensure sustainable peace in this region, that can assure prosperity, for the long term. Today, as we speak, there has to be one person who sits between Tamale and Lagos, who basically sits in a small market stall, and all she has maybe is a digital mobile phone in her hand. And what does she do? She probably just does trade with people she has never met across borders she'll probably never cross physically, in digital or currencies that she'll probably never hold. To this person, regardless of the level of education, she would be building ECOWAS from the ground up, because what she's doing is a silent act of integration. However, there are other demography of people who needs to enable this kind of person, not just by providing that mobile phone, not just by providing the software or services that she requires to make payments, but also by enabling other people who can build the ecosystem upon which that kind of innovation, what we call market creation, can continue to thrive sustainably for the future. Every message that this woman sends, for example, every payment that she receives, every digital footprint that she makes, is a silent effort by her unknowingly to integrate. So when you talk about people like this, their story is not technology. Their story is not, it's just basically possibilities. What is possible to keep life together. That is what they have. 50 years after ECOWAS was conceived, the dream to have a community of people fully integrated in a peaceful and prosperous region remains alive. Only that today it breathes in new realities, a world that is powered by data, driven by algorithms, and connected by invisible networks. Now, when you look at all of that put together, the question is, where would ECOWAS want to be in the next 50 years? Our region today, we have certain challenges where countries in the ECOWAS region have their own individual digital identity systems. Yet, West Africans struggle to prove who they are across borders. We have markets that are vibrant nationally, but they are fragmented largely because of regulatory walls that we have. West Africa, I hold bold to say, have the most vibrant youth across the continent, yet they are also the most excluded. Excluded not because they don't have access, but because of the paradox of connectivity as opposed to integration. So the paradox is very clear. We are connected today because of the pervasiveness of technology. But the question is, are we truly integrated? Across West Africa, things are also happening In Nigeria, for example, I think just a couple of days ago, Nigeria launched the main auth service, which essentially is to help to rebuild trust in public service delivery. In Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, the youth are embracing AI in the transformation of finance, agric, and all of that. In the Gambia and Sierra Leone, social media particularly have become a marketplace and also a civic platform where they express themselves. But when you talk about things like there's a lot to say. When you talk about things like artificial intelligence, for example, artificial intelligence has the power to help us detect fiscal shocks before they disrupt economies. They have the ability to help us detect food shortages before they occur. They also help us to personalize our experience when it comes to service delivery, health, and all of that. But then I ask the question, is this how we are using it in West Africa? So it goes back to where I started from. Tokenism, consumerism, rather than real productivity. Money can be made, yes. But by the time you look at the basis of all of that, the question you're asking yourself, do we really have the foundation in West Africa for this continuous tech revolution or innovation or even productivity? You want to ask that question. Because the danger in what we are discussing is that if we are not able to lay the foundation to build a roof upon ourselves, then we have to live in rooms built by others. And what that means is that we have to live by their rules. So again, it's kind of, I'm a bit conflicted, I would say. Africans, so the question is, again, what are the observable attributes and behaviors, for the future people of ECOWAS? When you look at it generally, West African youth are very quick to embrace technology, no doubt. But how about the ethics of use? And that's where things begin to form, really. So one is to lay the foundation, but another thing is, how are we using these things? Are we using them ethically enough? Social media particularly has the ability to connect us. They have the ability to promote our culture, our stories, and all of that. But we also need to know that they have the powers to propagate prejudice. Social media is our marketplace, is our communication platform, but sometimes it is also our new battleground. When you talk about things like Ghana jollof is better than Nigerian jollof, and a very simple topic like that, inciting vitriolics all over social media, creating enmity sometimes for people who do not have the ability to discern, what that statement might mean. So it's a lot of stuff that I here to unpack. Some observation. Youth of West Africa are digital natives and they're optimistic. They are not waiting for anyone to tell them what to do. They are not waiting for our permission. They are just moving on. But what that means to us as leaders is that we have to guide. We have to be many notches ahead. We have to be steps ahead to guide. We have to invest in education, for example. And when I say education, I mean digital education, where we can actually build from the foundation and take ourselves away from the clutches of what is out there, because they help to also, whether we like it or not, shape the kind of culture, the kind of news, the kind of beliefs that we share. That is important for us to do. We have borderless imagination, and this just means that this generation operates more regionally than nationally. So collaboration is easy, but it has to still be within the frame of governance, so that we also don't begin to trespass, violate rules. Somebody said today, Kenyans are marching to the borders to join the riot or protest in Tanzania. That speaks volume by itself. There is something we call the ethical ambivalence, and I think I've highlighted it as well. In which case, you know how to use tech, you only just don't know how to use it safely. That also needs to be done. In terms of lesson, what we need to do thereof is that African youth, ECOWAS youth are ahead of the curve. We have to meet them where they are. If we are thinking that there is some kind of stuff we are going to do for them, they're ahead of us, actually, and we are the one who needs to catch up with them to rein those things in. We need to institutionalize innovation, and there are three kinds of that, and we need to understand what that means. Market creating, we have to do that for job creation. Where job is created, violence reduces, productivity increases, and the social standard of people generally just improves. We need to do that. We need to build ethical literacy. In closing, I'll just say that the next generation is not waiting to join ECOWAS. They are building it in the cloud. It is for us to find the wings to meet them where they are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Je pense qu'on peut retenir aussi.
I think taking into consideration the risks, the challenges, and the stakes, just like your previous speaker stated, but also including the potentials that we should not leave out. We need to use it properly. And in these potentials, we have the contribution of everyone in using these tools for the benefit of the economy. But they also need more capacities to ensure that these risks are avoided and that the challenges are tackled. You talked about the potentials offered by AI. This includes the risks posed by the use of these tools that can be used to divide our people. It can also help ECOWAS to have a much more optimal collaboration and also a risk of division of our people if the institutions fail to regulate. Generally, we can also take note of the optimism expressed by tomorrow leaders in strengthening national and regional citizenship through the proper use of these networks, and also institutions should remain to support us. I will now give the floor to Dr. Damilola for him to tell us a little bit more about what leadership can provide. What kind of leadership do we need so that these tools and these technologies can be of good use to ECOWAS in the next 50 years? ECOWAS has already taken this into consideration in their vision, but the way it was taken into consideration from the view of how is it something that was taken on board such that in the next 25 years, that is where we are targeting with all the external upheavals, and the way it has been taken on board will be of good use and will help us attain the goals of this vision. I give you the floor. You have 3 minutes. Thereafter, 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Yeah, so yes, for the next 25 years, in a way, in agreement with the last speaker and some of the other previous speakers, I think I don't want to say I'm optimistic totally. I'm a little bit hesitant when it comes to AI and social media and some of these technologies. Partly because when we talk about AI, for instance, artificial intelligence, whose intelligence are we talking about? Whose knowledge system, whose epistemologies are we talking about? Because every technology, whether it's gunpowder, it's steam engine, they are incubated within specific cultures. Now, the AI system, the model that we have, if you understand the nitty-gritty of some of the models used in training the AI, they are Western-centric. The structure and everything, the whole thing is made towards that end. So if ECOWAS is going to, we're talking about 25 years, I wouldn't want to promote what I call platform dependencies, where we'll continue to use this, we apply system developed elsewhere, whether it's technology, social media, what have you, and then we carry that on without looking at our own, or unpacking them, or deconstructing them, or building our own system, alternative systems, and then use that as a yardstick. We will never be able to compete because the system does not belong to us in any way. So what I would rather advise in terms of the leadership of ECOWAS, the leadership should be visionary enough, should be ethically grounded and adaptive. Adaptive in such a way that we should look towards alternative systems rather than fostering digital colonialism, where for everything, for all intent and purposes, some of the models used, for instance, in ChatGPT, you will see that they further, they are kind of, if you look at it, they promote some form of cultural biases that we are trying to fight against. So there is also the way social media is used at this moment. I would advise, I'm sorry to say this, most people don't want to hear this, I would prefer some element of the Chinese model and the Chinese approach. For instance, China, I think this week or yesterday, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, came up with a policy that for you to be a social media influencer in China, you must have a degree in what you are talking about. So in Nigeria, in Africa, you see people who have not been to, they are not doctors, but they are doing social media because they can speak, and then they are giving advice on medicine and some other things like that. So we think social media will amplify possibilities. It will also amplify divides and amplify disinformation and what have you. In the hands of people who are sinister, it's going to be dangerous. So I wouldn't want that system of virality, system of commodification of engagement, like likes and what have you. We should not commodify our engagement. We should find a way that will mimic and reflect our own culture, cultural nuances and approaches. And for me, I would say we could totally deconstruct everything and then reconstruct our own models, our own systems, and then find a way to promote that. If not, we'll be producing pockets of mini Westerners, or Western influencers all over. Lastly, I would also want to say that we need an ECOWAS that is going to look towards the area of multi-sectoral engagement, where people don't work on their own individual strength. We need to collaborate the more and integrate all our effort, and there should be transnational coordination in that regard. And lastly, I want to say that much as most people don't like to hear this, fine, the internet space should not be left ungoverned. I mean, the social media space, whether it's, I'm not saying that it should be dictatorial, but we need to understand that and have specific governance models and frameworks that would take care of some of these things and prevent situations where what we see in Rwanda, where ordinary radio led to deaths of people. Social media, I mean, if we are not careful, could amplify that as well. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Carlos. But our colleague, he talked about governance and strategic leadership, visionary leadership. Can you tell us a few, 3 minutes? Yeah, 3 minutes.
Eu faço parte daquele grupo
we can find this among young persons, and most especially in line with the use of AI technologies and ITC. However, I think there is a space where we need to create a space for this spontaneity and creativity to be achieved, and will be accompanied by a capacity of mobilizing this spontaneous and creativity network. This is the major challenge we face in ECOWAS and its leaders. The challenge we will face in the next 25 years. This creativity should be channeled somehow, and it should be guided in order to be fruitful, and also to take into consideration some factors that are indispensable for the use of ethics. So the optimism I previously talked about is the civic and digital consciousness. All these factors have to be followed by a leadership based on ethics. Ethics and the use of social media, which should not be actions that are dangerous. We are talking about citizenship that should be beneficial to all citizens. Unfortunately, what we observe on social media, there is a poor and a dangerous use of the media on political debate platforms. And there is also a lack of consideration for ethical considerations which must be observed. So leadership should be able to control this technology and also guarantee cooperation. Our colleague made mention of the ethical component, and we need to take on board the values and also safeguard human dignity. So the use of these platforms should not affect what we want, which is a future for mutual trust and a future that will inspire the consideration of a just and more inclusive society. I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Carlos. Donc, l'appel est à un leadership.
You're talking about transformative leadership in order to support this trend, and you have positive citizenship. This is what we can tease out from your presentation.
There's 15 minutes left, Professor. Can we open the floor for intervention from the audience? Do we have time? We have 2 hands here. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. We start by Madam.
Thank you very, very much for a really fascinating
You have 1 minute, Madam. 1
discussion.
minute.
So I just want to just push us a little bit more on this question of the digital divide, and I'd be interested in knowing what the statistics tell us about internet penetration across the region, and which countries and spaces are lagging behind, which ones are ahead, and how identities such as the rural-urban divide, gender, class, and so on, then come in, and therefore what does ECOWAS need to do so that we truly benefit from those technologies and don't leave some people behind? And then secondly, I've just noticed that we seem throughout the last 2 days to have somehow put culture on the periphery. And by culture, I think all the technologies we're talking about are excellent in terms of complementing what already exists. But I'm also curious about what happens when we seem to be leaving behind the kind of processes and products that people need to be physically present for. So how do we use these technologies as complementary rather than replacing? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Thank you. My name is Remi Ajibewa, and I will not be doing justice to myself for this exercise without. First of all, I realize the preamble needs to be talked on what Vision 2050 is, actually ECOWAS Vision 2050. Also, there must be that of ECOWAS Vision 2020, which perhaps I could say the committee of directors, when I was here, worked on it in 2021, in which I was the vice president. Jonas Emu is the chair, and the late Magbadelo was the coordinator then. However, I want to say that all the pillars, the 5 pillars we have there, Pillar 4 emphatically stress on this digital technology. But the most important thing which I want to highlight is that potential is always the key word there. Because we realize that even in West Africa, for every citizen to have a sense of ownership and belonging, they must be able to discover their potential. But have we been able to get to that stage where individual can develop his potential and where there's discrimination? Then he must be able to develop it, and that development needs to come from the member state or the government. Then he will be able to later deploy it in the society and then increase himself. But however, on the part of the government itself, you could see in all, there are certain trends that runs through all what the 5 of you have said. That is about the transformational leadership. Whether we like it or not, the member states have a role, and ECOWAS itself constitutes the member states. And so the issue of ownership is there for the people to have an ownership in this vision itself or the future, the member states, and then the leaders. And then what kind of leader do we require? We require a sort of renewed and transformative leadership in terms of what I constitute like CDD, like a committed, dedicated, and determined leader. And how could they do this? Because they need to see that this, all what we have been saying here, the implementation is the problem. And who are the leaders? They are the decision-making body is the head of state. The commission is the technical aspect of it. So we need to re-emphatically stress the need for a transformative leadership. And then the people in the country themselves, individual citizens, to be able to see how they can also do something for their country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there was first Doyen Bai.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Congratulations also to the panelists. Well, I want to make a double observation, meaning that Our experts are convinced that they have the required expertise and they can compete equally with others. That is my first observation. Secondly, they believe that the promotion of exchange of experience and pooling of resources across the borders, these are factors of speeding up our abilities in this area. So these are the two observations I am making. I also want to conclude that it behoves on the member states and the Commission to trust our expertise and to work in line with that through a framework that will help to bring out all those talents. And so that also we also want to be inclusive in training. So people like me, BBC just like me, but born before computer, should also be on board. So that we can also should be able to also make available our expertise. This is my conclusion. Let's believe in the experts so that we can make that progress we want. Thank you so much, senior brother. Ambassador, please, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator.
How to create digital and environmental integration in ECOWAS in the following ways. You asked the question about leadership. Indeed, leadership is very, very important. And I recall very well when our boss, Dr. Chambers, was here, there was this idea of creating a hub in terms of digital transformation. And Togo was agreed and established as the ECOWAS Computer Center. I don't think that idea was progressed further. So now we need to aim at a modern connectivity in ECOWAS, and we need a local champion. We need a local champion either as one of the countries leading the process or 2 or 3 serving as models. And at the state level, it is important that countries on their own must invest in regional data economy, establishing cyber security protocols that work in ECOWAS and operating e-governance systems that will deepen the regional integration process. I think that is the best way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Yesterday, a young lady raised an observation that the Gen Z, that is the young ones in West Africa, but most of them do not even know what ECOWAS is all about. So I want to connect that with the discussion today on ICT, new media, and digital transformation. That if you want the Gen Z to be aware of ECOWAS, then we have to occupy the space where you mostly find them. And you mostly find them in the social media, and two things actually excite them more: entertainment and football. Right? So we need to create to cast ECOWAS information into and fit into these spaces, the entertainment and the football. Right? So that they will be aware of what ECOWAS is all about, because that's where you mostly find them. You find them mostly on social media, and what they do most is either to be watching entertainment or to be watching football. And so we can make use of they have the influencers, and we have them across West Africa that they have picked as their models. So I think this is one of the ways to bring the message of ECOWAS to the Gen Z. Thank you very much.
General, sorry. Back to you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. We've been discussing this morning on a very topical issue. The issue of digitalization, AI, new technologies are all focused on mastering information. That is a tool for tomorrow. And this will be the bedrock of every strategy, because ECOWAS is ECOWAS already thinking of that strategy. For now, we are just consumers. The honorable technologist spoke about it. Meanwhile, the new technologies are connective and erase borders. And that was the dream of the African Union and that of ECOWAS, I believe. What should we do in terms of seizing this opportunity? There's just one thing we should do. We should have an inclusive study to determine, as it were, the advantages, disadvantages, and the risks in using this digitalization. ECOWAS should determine what will be its role in that work. So that's what I have in mind, and I thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Madam Chair, I'm looking at AI between reimagination, which is a big theme for this meeting, and peoplehood, which is the focus of ECOWAS itself, and to appreciate that there's a demographic that is routinely neglected, and that is that of the elderly community across all countries within the region. For instance, average life expectancy is shown to be consistently increasing. So we're going to have a greater population of elderly persons, but my work shows that there's an increase in elderly abandonment. So before we get to the area of technology, which is a tool, how to do things, we have to show how at the manual phase, at the pre-digital phase, that there is a way we are taking on board the interests of the people. For instance, what is the performance of the ministries of social welfare and social development? Are we looking at the three major issues affecting elderly persons? Their health, the issue of hunger, and loneliness, which is classified by the World Health Organization as a disease. When AI, and not even just agentive AI, I see that the panelists are focusing on generative AI, but the evolution is already here. What it will do is to intensify the alienation that already exists among this category of citizens. How are we going to now, here and now, begin to show empathy, sensitivity, and focus on an emergent group, as it were, that is already expanding in its numbers, so that when we then digitalize that kind of governance, it will make sense. But to ignore what is happening on the continent, to ignore the necessity, the imperative of an inside-outside paradigm that starts from internally an understanding of our own condition, then again, we'll just again be using something that has been produced elsewhere and superimposing it on conditions that we should be solving within the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Last, Fatou.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I have 2 points to state. Concerning the observation, everybody has said that ECOWAS and our countries for more than 30 years have been spewing out the same narrative. And today we are talking about artificial intelligence. And there is this fear of these open spaces that are democratized, that allows citizens who either didn't have the opportunity of expressing themselves. So today, these spaces offer democratic opportunities for business and also for inclusion for a large segment of them. It is also true that these are spaces that are fraught with risk. But in my view, if we needed to make progress, we need to do some balancing act. Today, we know quite well that the economic models that were the basis of this platform is the neoliberal models, which is based on freedom of expression. All the companies that we're talking about, namely TikTok, are based in the United States, and their model over there, this is based on the First Amendment of the U.S., which even authorizes the hate speech. So, which means that we need to conceptualize our discussion on that. People talk about regulation. Should we regulate? We're saying we should regulate the social media, but we should have more of a governance approach. When you're talking about governance, there are several aspects. First of all, there are aspects in terms of content that is important, in terms of disinformation, national cohesion, and security. But what matters is that look at the economic models. Are we investing in ECOWAS so that we are able to have the resources for our policies? It is key that we should rather talk about governance in a holistic manner. And what economic model do we want to have? What investment do we want to make? And what will be the contribution of the region to that debate? The last point, and somebody has already talked about it, who is controlling the content? We all know that information is power. Whoever has information can play a very important role in the life of the people and even at the international level. If we want citizens to continue to contribute, if we want ECOWAS companies to invest, we need to have a protective economic model. We need to ensure freedom of expression. We must make sure that countries in a very balanced way will not close the internet. When there's a small problem, operators are being told to close their networks. Investors are not going to invest in a sector whereby we need political will, we need a convergent philosophy of ECOWAS leaders, but more importantly, we must say that the population are already ahead of the curve, and freedom of expression should be guaranteed. This should be sacred. Thank you, Fatu. Well, I was told my time has run out. Sorry for that. At this stage, I'm going to, timekeeper, can I?
So just to summarize that the intervention, we can keep keywords that governance, responsibility, ownership for member states, and I think this is a cri du cœur, communication, security aspect, everything. Qui détient l'information détient le pouvoir.
Whoever has information has power. We got that information. We got that from one of the people here. It's somebody who knows security issues that said it. And the potential, the enormous potential that does exist, to also create a space for them.
Ajibou? 1 minute.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much for all the questions. Very interesting. Might be difficult. We have a platform on a WATHI platform with Amadou and Trouble, who is also a member of our board of the African Platform for Fact Checkers. That platform is build sustainable alliances to fight against disinformation. When you read that article, you can see that the solution can come from regional institutions such as ECOWAS, because the regional institutions who have that power, that big power, I should say, of discussing with leaders. You have talked earlier on about the issue of disinformation and regulation of social media and all what transpires there. Solution could be at the regional level if institutions such as ECOWAS and the African Union takes that leadership and talks with the big tech companies so that they can put forward a vision of Africa. So this is the answer I have. And in closing, relating to the rate of internet penetration in Africa, well, very often when you go to the field and you go to the remote areas, those areas are highly connected in Africa. But apart from figures, what you observe is that there are big problems, even though countries are thinking that they've made progress in digital penetration rates and that the coverage rate is quite high in terms of internet. But when you go to the field, you know that there are still major problems, and the quality of internet is limited to the southern parts of the country or to the big cities. And when you go interland, you can see that there are still a lot of efforts that needed to be made to make progress. Thank you so much.
Yes, so my own reaction is going to be now to Dr. Mishai and Prof. Obono. I think I'm seeing a kind of synergy between some of the observations and the questions you've raised. Regarding digital divide, I've mentioned it earlier, something around what the AI is, the way it's structured, and the ecosystem, and even the ontology of the entire system. The way it's divided is to amplify specific divides, whether it's gender, class, and however you want to look at it. And also, how do we show empathy, pre-digital, and what have you. So what I've said also is around the fact that we need to create our own system entirely, and for the construction of other people's, like the Chinese Digital Silk Road project and some other organizations other systems that have developed their own ways, their own that will reflect their own realities. And I think that is one point I would want to raise there. So lastly, I want to say that at the ELC Data Lab, we have an initiative around digital peace ontologies where we've been gathering data for many years now, and we're open to collaborations with other West African partners in a way that will help us to address all the issues that we've raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carlos?
Sim, nós estamos perante digital divide.
Indeed, we are facing a digital divide on the continent and in the world first, in Africa and in our region. The suggestion that has been made is that we could identify the models that could be used, and these models can help for digital transformation in Africa and also in our sub-region. This is a beautiful idea. ECOWAS could use that example in solving the digital divide. We have heard a lot of interventions. I support them. I don't have comments there too. But how can we take advantage of these opportunities? And for that, we will need a leadership and a model that will enable us to achieve our set objectives. In summary, we could say that we can take on board these observations, and I want to thank those who have made those suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah, you have the floor.
Right. So for me, a couple of things we need to do. My own approach to solving problems, especially looking at communities, is to basically crowdsource it. Now, a good way to crowdsource is, in my opinion, with what has been documented as market creating innovation. Now, we have other kinds of innovation, but we need to do that. At the base of that, as a region, we need to think about the DPI, these as a backbone for regional integration. We need to look at that. We need to have open data exchange that helps to build on the intelligence that exists, and therefore we know exactly what is going on across security, business, potentials, resources, and all of that across the region. We need to also have some kind of AI-based, AI-driven governance, in which case it helps us to forecast, to predict, to anticipate, and to also prepare for issues before they happen. To have a strategy for smart communication, in my opinion, as well. And what this does is that it helps us to tell the ECOWAS story in the nascent local digital languages of constituents of the ECOWAS, sub-region. Our digital transformation must remember that at its heartbeat, we must have inclusion, we must have intelligence, and we must be human at the heart of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup à tous les panélistes.
Thank you all eminent panelists. Thank you everyone. And a big thank to everyone. I would like to also pay tribute to our senior colleagues and also thank CODESRIA and all partners for this very rich event and very rich feedbacks, and I think they will be used and followed up such that we can reach our objectives as set by the ECOWAS 2050 vision, even if at some point we have to review if the targeted objectives are realistic and achievable. Thank you so much.
We are going to have a short tea break. As usual, yesterday there will be two places. Those leftists will go to this side, the rightists will go to the other side. And then Eged will lead some of our guests to the small room here. We have 30 minutes, yes?
The General is asking where the centrist will be.
No, you must take a position. We are at a crossroad, either left or right. No, we're not having any centrists here. So thank you. Just 30 minutes break, and then please let us come back. Let not allow me to be shouting around for you to come back before we come. Let's come back by 30 minutes time. That is we're starting the next section at exactly 12 noon. The panelists should please come here for the photograph. Panelists, photograph. Very good.